Understanding magnetic collapse, virtual dielectric E-field oscillation, and displacement energy events. The system employs opposing capacitor charging, split primaries, a central spark gap, and a floating secondary coil. This configuration enables the generation of displacement current pulses and nonlinear field events, which are observable as high-energy impulses at the secondary coil output without significant input power increase. Crucially, this circuit does not operate on the basis of traditional capacitor discharge or transformer principles. Instead, it demonstrates energy transfer through the collapse and recombination of oscillating E-fields and magnetic fields, resulting in a behavior that mimics a capacitor-induced inductor pulse but does so without using a physical capacitor on the output side. System construction. The core circuit consists of two primary coils wound with about 400 turns each, air core, positioned side by side, a 90-volt spark gap placed centrally between the two primary coils, two capacitors, C1 and C2 500 volts rated, one in series with each coil, a high voltage DC source, a 12 volt to 4000 volt boost converter used to charge both capacitors, a floating secondary coil made of thicker wire and only 100 turns, placed concentrically inside the two primaries, with no electrical connection to any part of the driving circuit. Each primary coil forms a leg of the circuit, and the spark gap connects the top leg of one coil to the bottom of the other, creating a center-tapped reactive configuration. Each capacitor charges its respective coil leg with the same DC source, but due to the capacitor mirrored structure Don Smith crudely talks about, the polarity across the spark gap builds in opposition, saving as much as up to half of the energy input for the same output power and displacement current. This setup creates a field geometry where both electric and magnetic conditions develop without the need for high wattage input or large capacitor banks. For experimental teaching, charging and spark event dynamics opposing capacitor charging. When the system is powered, capacitors C1 and C2 begin charging. Due to the orientation of the wiring, they charge in opposite polarity. One cap develops a positive potential, the other negative. The spark gap does not fire based on either capacitor reaching a specific voltage relative to ground. It fires only when the potential difference between C1 and C2 reaches the spark gap's breakdown voltage, typically around 90 volts. This differential voltage trigger is fundamental. It is the gradient difference. It means the spark gap behaves as a nonlinear switching element that fires only when the field asymmetry between both capacitor coil legs becomes extreme enough. This is the proper way to wire up Don Smith type setups. The nature of the E-field. Not capacitive plate behavior. Much of Don Smith's original explanation suggested that the secondary coil acts as one plate of a capacitor, collecting radiant energy from a strong static E-field built up by the primary discharge. However, this turns out to be misleading. However, it is proper within the content Don Smith shares with a capacitor plate and earth ground, but the hawk-up and usage suggestion is all wrong, possibly even intentionally misleading. In this corrected system, the high voltage levels involved during charging under load are not sufficient to build up a true electrostatic surface charge on the secondary, nor is the geometry configured to support a dielectric field in the classic sense, two physical plates separated by an insulating medium. Instead, the system creates a virtual dielectric environment. The capacitors, coils, and spark gap configuration generate a spatially oscillating electric field, not a static one. This E-field is not stored in a dielectric, nor is it held between two charged surfaces. It is modulated in space, shaped by the geometry of the circuit and the timing of the charging cycle. The secondary sites inside this virtual dielectric, immersed in an oscillating field, not collecting charge but being polarized and depolarized repeatedly. In other words, the secondary does not accumulate voltage over time like a capacitor plate because there's no conductive loop for charge to build. However, it does experience field tension, a condition in which electric field lines cross it dynamically, inducing dielectric stress but not closed-loop current. This is a non-conductive E-field effect, and it's crucial to understanding the mechanism of the energy pulse. Spark gap collapse, injecting the missing magnetic component. When the spark gap finally fires, it forms a plasma bridge between the two capacitor-charged coil legs. Because each leg includes a high Q inductor, the current from the capacitor equalization cannot flow freely. It is forced to interact with the inductive reactance of the system. This causes a sudden magnetic field collapse. The inductors resist the sudden current change, which generates a sharp, nonlinear magnetic pulse, B field across the system. This collapse event is violent, fast, and spatially expansive. This magnetic pulse injects itself into the already oscillating E field, which up to this point has not had a corresponding B field event to complete it. The result is the creation of a true displacement current pulse. A momentary coherent field disturbance where electric and magnetic components align in such a way that they mimic the conditions of a capacitor discharging through an inductor. This pulse is short-lived, high-voltage, radiant in nature, detected in the secondary as an energetic impulse or spark, even without direct connection. Key characteristics of the pulse. The secondary coil responds only when the spark gap fires. It remains neutral otherwise, despite floating inside an active E field. There is no energy drain from the HV source when the secondary outputs its spark. This shows that the energy pulse is not sourced from the HV input at that moment. The spark in the secondary is bright, sharp, and often green-tinted, matching characteristics of radiant discharge reported by Bedini and others in relevance to negative energy. The system can produce the same field output conditions as a capacitor-induced high joule pulse without requiring a capacitor at the output because it leverages field compression, not stored charge. This circuit does not function through traditional power flow. Instead, it operates by creating an oscillating electric field between opposing charged capacitors and air core inductors, positioning the secondary within this field as a reactive probe, not a load, using a spark-triggered magnetic collapse to combine with the E field and generate a one-shot displacement current pulse, emitting that pulse into the secondary coil, which picks it up through field coupling, not electromagnetic induction. This is not capacitive coupling, nor is it transformer action. It is best understood as nonlinear field collapse coupling, where energy moves via geometry, timing, and reactive field balance, not through conduction. This system demonstrates a form of energy transfer where displacement current and field modulation dominate, rather than classical conduction or electromagnetic induction. The secondary output is not the result of stored charge or step-down transformer behavior. It is a field interaction triggered by the collapse of a virtual dielectric system at the moment of spark gap discharge. This redefines how capacitive effects can be created without physical capacitors, how electric fields can induce voltage without conduction, and how energy can be released through time field collapse instead of charge storage. Rather than imagining capacitors discharging and transformers transferring power, this system should be seen as a reactive field engine, one that extracts momentary pulses of energy from field asymmetry and nonlinear discharge timing, aka a vacuum ZPE pump in Tom Bearden terms.
So here is the real device prototype as a reference to the circuit diagram, such as this one over here that I showed you exactly as this here. And essentially I came up with this circuit that basically works, and I basically tried every single one in the Don Smith actually had a lot of concepts, right? But the Tesla-like coil setup, mostly his early setup stuff. Anyways, everything that gets replicated, you know, in the schematics he shared essentially is essentially a form of what everybody would expect out of natural Tesla coil primary secondary system. So when you look at his schematics as is, there's nothing that's really revealing, and those who have replicated it doesn't not seem anyways to find something that's more special than what was actually expected out of the circuit. And some people unfortunately actually end up blowing very expensive $200-300 capacitors and end up basically being inconclusive. Now, after testing all the hookups, and essentially what led me to this was because, I don't know if everyone watched it, but in some of the later Don Smith videos, he presents one of his devices, and someone actually starts asking him, how it works. It has more information on actual coil configurations and such. And I don't know if you remember it, but his son actually stands up and interrupts Don Smith and basically, in a kind of snarky way, goes, we're not going to sit here and tell you how to wire coil A into coil B. That's not what we're going to do. Instead, pay attention to the slides, that Don Smith was doing to focus on the capacitive plate, discharging it to ground. And he had some little papers that he had given everyone there. And then his son just sits down, right? And this is where I noticed, if he doesn't want to share how he connects everything, then what's in all the diagrams that are already out there? So I guess what I'm getting at is Don Smith intentionally put circuit diagrams out there of what everyone actually expected out of its system and not so much what he did with it, but instead tried to hint verbally what he did. So after, myself not finding anything more special with the hookups as they are, this is what seems to really get it going, is this split capacitor setup here. And as the introduction tells you, we're using displacement current, and we are actually using the potential difference and not having to wait for the full charge. And this is more of a way of imaging it. But as Don Smith was saying, one plate images the other. It's more like one cap images the other. And through this high Z system here, we're able to simulate basically a virtual capacitive effect as described earlier with the E field that fluctuates, that oscillates in free space here. And what you get here is, again, the big green out like a capacitive discharge. And of course, Don Smith from this point on does what basically what it is this is a start for you guys to enjoy and learn about it. And you take it from there and do what you want with it. Then Don Smith decided to run his transducers and get AC and all. That's more stuff down the line. But just like Bedini, you could use this energy as is with many things, or send it to a rectifier and charge capacitors, a buffer bank, have some sort of looping setup. It doesn't matter what you want to do. It's whatever you want to do. But in its most simple form, this can be all you need to start learning about it. And once you truly understand what's going on here, then you can build it up to whatever you want at much faster speeds here. But maybe that's the thing. I actually submitted a video about like a 2-point-some K watt energy generator with capacitive displacement currents, true loops, and it was a very complicated multiple stage setup, and like 99.9% of people did not get it. It's quite ironic, actually, because in the overunity research forums, there's still people talking about it. They're all arguing on there. It's like 15 pages long. They're all the experts, the so-called experts, trying to figure out, they don't agree with my output, but they all agree that there's an output that's probably overunity, but no one's able to calculate it, apparently, because they don't understand the capacitive displacement effect, like I was trying to explain it. They get the first stage, but they don't think of applying it for the later stage. They think a closed loop. They want to go back to closed loop, right? So they'd have inconsistencies in their calculations. So let them have fun with that. But the point is, because it was so complicated, most people missed it. So this is literally based on the same concept, but using the Don Smith effect. And this is probably basically how I think Don Smith actually ran and wired his coils, because this is basically the one thing I tried that literally actually works here. So I will actually demonstrate it. So this is what we have here. The two capacitors, a 90-volt spark gap charging right in the middle, split here. And we have the secondary inside here connected. So just to show you, here's a real mains light bulb. This must be, they say like, 45 watts on the, but it's probably more like 20 watts or something. But the point is, we're going to get, what's really nice here is this is slow. So it really shows you a visual of what's going on to match what we were saying in the circuit description. So I'm going to turn this on. And of course, not bad, about 100 mA. And every time that discharges, there's that collapse event and very, very strong flash here. So for about 100 milliseconds, I know the camera catches it, but it doesn't dim out right away because this is like a little oscillator of its own, and it runs and then runs out and runs and runs out. So what happens here is it's pretty remarkable that for about 100 milliseconds, it keeps it going at full brightness. So it would be like getting maybe, what it's showing here is the potential for a very, just as crude as it is, it's a one-shot event, but there's potential for a lot of gain here. If you want to say that it's like maybe even 10 watts for 100 milliseconds when you're only putting like 100 mA on the input side. And of course, as I was saying, it doesn't really do much whether you're using it or not. Like I could actually bypass the light here, the load, so no more, but it doesn't do anything to the, as you can see, our input is completely decoupled from our output. It's not direct. Now I'm going to plug it back in. So there it comes. And you can see it's a very strong, very, very strong. It's like full power for that moment, and it lights up everything around here. So to show you something very interesting is I'm going to disconnect the light now. And I want to show you that big radiant spike, like a capacitive discharge from the virtual capacitor effect, okay? So this is the low voltage side, but we got this big, like a jolt-like radiant discharge. So I'm going to try and get really close here. Try and get that spark. There you go. See that big blue spark just like Bedini gets? Gotta get the timing right. See that big blue discharge? It's like a joule capacitive discharge, but there's no capacitor. And this is very low voltage, but the joule is crazy. And it's in the same signature as Bedini's capacitive discharges. That big, thick blue-green spark. Hold on. Just trying to get it. Got to time it just right at the discharge. At the same time this discharges. See, big, big, thick, and very snappy, as you can tell with the current, the displacement, which gives you the equivalent of real current once you finalize the closed loop. But this closed loop is not coupled. So you could use it for whatever. So here's just for demonstration purposes, but if one were to refine this, they want to send this rectify to like supercapacitors or something and try and recycle this or use it for your load. There seems to be an amplification factor just as is, just from this mechanism. Now, of course, you know, this is just a lab bench demonstration. So this is not an ideal setup, you know, before somebody says self-loop it, right? What I'm demonstrating is the gain here versus in and out. And this is a lab bench power supply. So it's got all these bells and whistles. So I got to pay all that extra to run all of this, which wouldn't be needed to actually drive this. But for convenience and to show you guys everything that's going on, it's nice to have, right? But if one were to try and use this more efficiently, you'd want to build your own little power supply just to run this. That's not all of this junk here, which then you can probably self-loop with a buffer with supercapacitors or something, or do whatever you want with it. I'm just putting that out there. You know, this is not what you'd run, but for lab, for tests, for learning is very ideal because it gives you a clear picture of what's going on. So there it is, very, very slow motion, but it gives you a good, you could actually hear it, every event. And this is but what happens, you know, it's like a virtual capacitor. There's that E field, but it's not static, it's not accumulating, but it's oscillating. And at that moment, in the magnetic field collapse, you got the two components that join right here at the discharge. So it's like a capacitive discharge. So essentially using, you know, the vacuum essentially as a capacitive dielectric, and we're discharging that back to our load through clever electromagnetic field manipulation.